What I've done here is create the mass of the sleeve separate from the body, and then separate this top edge of the cuff. So there's a wall down here that'll eventually be undercut. This edge here is quite important, and I've been able to use masking tape to set up the actual stiff part of the button element of the cuff, and that's fairly flat as it goes along here like this. I've used my calipers to make sure that this bit of the cuff, which runs underneath, is the same as this bit at the top. That's important. And again, I've been able to use masking tape to set the line of the cuff. And of course there's another stiffening bit that runs under here, and this will run underneath this edge here when that's undercut. So we know that this must come up, this edge must come and meet this point here. That's where it's going. It actually joins into that stitching. So so that line will be eventually across there like that, and we can use the masking tape again to get that line. So we've created this edge here will roll into a big crease here. There's quite a deep crease along this edge here, but you can see there's quite a bit of undercutting to be done. And what I would do is I would just get everything in position except for the undercutting, and this is going to be cut out because the edge of the sleeve comes around here like this, the edge of the cuff here. This will be undercut, and here's the bottom edge of the cuff, slightly open, and there's the far side of the edge there. It comes to quite a tight ellipse because it's the perspective. Then this is the body of the shirt going round, and I'm going to have to adjust that. So it's really a matter of reading the cuff and seeing how everything works together. And then when you've got everything nice and neat, then we can start beginning the undercut. I've used my V-tool to separate the bottom of the cuff from the shirt and taken this bit back. I've also run the inside of the sleeve here and dropped a cliff face down there for the moment. I've come round here, and here's my line of the inner button stiffener, and we can take that off, and you can see that this bit here is what needs to be undercut. So we can start that off with an edge here. This is a straight chisel. I'll just take a little bit out of there. So that gives us our line, and this will be undercut all throughout here, back up to here, and then there's a sort of little bit of double take as it goes into this fold here. So start this off by all means so you get a sense of where everything is, but don't undercut it, because we're going to turn this shirt upside down and remove some of the back from the corners, and this will certainly weaken it if we rest on it. So get as far as this for the moment. Take a bit of that out, and then we can also look at the outside edge here. So I'm following the form of the shirt around and underneath the sleeve, and then I'm following the form of the sleeve around like this to go underneath from this side as well. Between the two of them we end up with this big crevice. You can use a deep gouge like this to take some of that waste away, or you can use your V-tool. That's sometimes a good one for getting rid of waste. And then look at this. This is a wonderful, probably 2-inch, 50mm, very flat gouge. And this is really great for coming round and finishing off into there. If you don't have a gouge like that, then of course you have to use your normal smaller one, and eventually start pulling some of this out here. I need to come around the other side for this. Here's a bits coming out now. This is a flat gouge, a number 3, following along and round. If I use another flat gouge in this direction as well, I get a very tight angle in that crease. But if I use a gouge which is more like a number 5, a bit more rounded, then it comes in like so at a bit of an angle, and it's actually easier to push that away. The cuff on this side is more complicated than the other, and it's quite important that I get the logic of it, how it works in my head before I start making cuts. So I've got the main overall shape of the cuff. Here's the edge of the upper cuff coming across here, and I want to make sure for a start that it's the same length up to the seam, up to where the join bit here, the stiffener is here, as on both sides. So I definitely check that. And then I've used my tape, which is my measure of the thickness of the seam here, to mark out exactly how this is going. So I'm clear about this bit at the top. This bit here is like a fixed position. Then what happens on this cuff is that the cuff opens here into two edges. It's an opening here for the arm to go through. And this edge rolls over the back like this. So this edge is actually the far side of this cuff, and this face drops round the back. So the first thing I can do is split this off here. So with a V-tool I'm going to separate so that is representing the edge of this cuff here. I'll make it a little bit deeper. And then I need to take wood away from here. So this cuff is going to go under there, and all this wood here is taken away, and forms the inside of that cuff there. I moved this on a little bit now, this cuff, so I think you can see more clearly what's going on. There's a stiffener part here that the two edges join into. The stiffener is at an angle and in fact buckles up the whole cuff here on this edge. And from this direction, this plane, this top cuff does this. So it actually winds underneath this one, and that's why when we put this in here, from there, that this edge that we're going to draw in and actually carve in, this inner edge here, goes round and winds underneath, and it must do that. The other edge here on this side goes from this plane again and actually goes around the back. This is as far as I'm going to go with the cuff for the moment. This line here is a little confusing. It's actually a coloration in the wood, a streak of colour. So just ignore that for the moment. Here's the top edge coming over here. Here's the other edge at the back of the back of the cuff. And these two, if you notice, they're not parallel. I've given them a little bit of variation, and that's more interesting than having them parallel. And also different heights where I ended the cuff. So this is moving right around, eventually will be undercut, but I'm not going to undercut here until I've undercut there, so in case I need to move this back a little bit. So get it as far as this, and then we're going to move to the bottom end of the shirt.